It's really hard for me to tell her that people hate her.
It has felt like my child has been bullied by our Texas legislators.
More than a dozen bills were introduced in the Texas legislature this session regarding those in the LGBT community, and more than a dozen of them were considered anti-trans. To some advocacy groups, transgender people and their families. KENS 5 Eyewitness News reporter Alyssa Day has sat down with two local moms as they explain how these pieces of legislation, although they did not pass, have made a lasting impact on their families.
It would be really hard for me to tell her that people hate her.
A waiting game for two Texas moms.
To me, it wasn't fair to single out my child based on their gender expression.
Keeping an eye on the Texas legislative session as the parents of a transgender child.
It has felt like my child has been bullied by our Texas legislators.
As 13 bills were proposed this session affecting the lives of people who identify as trans. Among them, a bill that would restrict the participation of transgender student athletes to their biological sex and not the gender they identify as. And another which would classify providing gender-affirming health care as child abuse.
I get really frustrated with people who don't have any experience, don't know anything about it, haven't read any books or anything like that, just labeling me something and acting like I don't love my kid.
Texas State Senator Charles Perry is the author of both bills.
Those should be left when those child are mature enough and in adulthood to understand the consequences of those decisions.
Both women went to Austin several times to speak out against the legislation and watched as the time ran out on their respective deadlines.
We stayed up until midnight watching the Texas legislature online to see if our child would be okay.
None were able to pass. Maddie Kennedy, a case manager for Thrive Youth Center, a facility for homeless LGBTQ youth, says these bills will have a lasting impact.
What was difficult this session is looking at all of the bills that could have further brought us down.
So even though it may be a relief now, both parents say their fight isn't over.
We just need them to leave us alone. Let us thrive. Let us be a normal family.
Alyssa Day, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.